Be ready, start. Mr. Kakkar, a learned counsel appearing on behalf of the auction purchaser, has submitted that as the tenants in the instant case were inducted not only after the institution of the suit for enforcement of the mortgage but also after the compromise decree had been passed there in section 52 of the Transfer of Property Act must be held to be applicable and it must be held that the tenancies were illegal and were created in breach of the provisions contained in section 52 of the Transfer of Property Act. Mr. Kakkar has argued that section 65A of the Transfer of Property Act does not in any way control section 52 of the said act. It is his argument that Section 65A makes provisions with regard to the powers of the mortgagor to grant leases of the mortgaged property after the creation of the mortgage but before the institution of suit, while on the other hand Section 52 makes provisions for cases of transfer or otherwise dealing with any property after the institution of a suit or proceeding, and Section 52 imposes a complete ban on the transfer of any kind or dealing with immovable property except with the authority of the court during the pendency of the suit or proceeding in which any right to immovable property is directly or specifically in question, so that the rights of any party may not be affected when any decree or order is passed in the suit or in the proceeding. Mr. Kakkar has referred to Section 58 of the Transfer of Property Act in support of his contention that in case of a mortgage there is a transfer of an interest in specific immovable property for the purpose of securing of the payment of money advanced or to be advanced by way of loan. He has argued that in a suit for the enforcement of mortgage, it must therefore be held that the right of immovable property is directly and specifically in question, and he has further argued that after the decree for sale is passed in a mortgage suit, the mortgagor loses even his right to redeem the property. He has submitted that in the instant case, tenancies have been created long after the promise decree in which provision for sale of the mortgaged property had been made and right of the mortgagee decree holder to put up the mortgaged property to same had also arisen for failure on the part of the mortgagor judgment debtor to pay the decretal dues in terms of the compromise decree, and the tenancies created by the mortgagor must be held to be illegal and void as they are clearly in contravention of the provisions contained in section 52 of the Transfer of Property Act. He submits that there cannot be any manner of doubt that the creation of a tenancy affects the value of the property and to that extent affects the security, even though it may be said that the legislature in its wisdom has thought it fit to permit the mortgagor to grant leases of the mortgaged property in terms of the provisions contained in section 65A of the Transfer of Property Act. It is his argument that the legislature has thought it fit not to impose any kind of absolute prohibition in respect of the dealing with any property by the mortgagor after the creation of a mortgage, and has imposed only such restrictions which the legislature thought would not prejudicially affect the security of the mortgagee, but the legislature, however, in Section 52 of the Act has thought fit to impose complete ban on the transfer of or otherwise dealing with any property after the institution of a suit or proceeding in which the right to property is directly or specifically in question, so that the rights of any party thereto may not be affected under a decree or order which may be made in the suit or proceeding. Mr. Kakkar has next submitted that the auction purchaser at the court sale acquires all the right, title, and interest of the mortgager and also of the mortgagee as a result of the purchase, and the auction purchaser therefore steps into the shoes of the mortgagee and becomes entitled to obtain physical possession of the property purchased in the same manner as the mortgagee himself would have been able to do. Mr. Kakkar in this connection has referred to the decision of this court. An alternative argument of the appellant was that a case falling within Section 65A bracket 2 bracket A of the Transfer of Property Act for confining the duration of a lease over.